All right, here we go, people. 2 podcasts in one day. It's Friday evening, just after 7 p.m. my time. And I don't remember who it was, but there was somebody that said that they could listen to me talk all day. Anyway, I actually shouldn't be laughing at that. I actually appreciate that people appreciate my voice that much. But no, seriously though. And no, seriously. I know I did a podcast this morning and I was just sitting here and I don't know, I was in kind of one of those moods where I'm looking at circumstances and they aren't that great. But yet I have gotten some very encouraging messages from some of my subscribers, which I appreciate you guys, man. You have no idea how much that means. I actually had one person donate. Cheryl, I really appreciate it so much. You have no idea. I was actually able to go down and get me some groceries, and I had to walk. Luckily, there's a convenience store, but man, I'm telling you what, you don't realize how old almost 66-year-old knees are. And I also have torn meniscus in both knees, which doesn't make it any easier. But I made it down there, and I got me some stuff to eat. It made it back up the hill. And let me tell you, the hill that I live on is extremely steep. I had to stop. Man, I'm trying to count how many times I had to stop. At least 5 or 6 times. I had to stop and just, because I do have a heart condition as well. At this point with my medication and stuff is not life threatening, but boy, I tell you what, and plus the fact I'm out of shape, that doesn't help. Now, if I was to make that walk every day down to the store and then back up the hill, within about a couple weeks, I'd probably be in shape. So, but hopefully I don't have to do that again very soon. But anyway, let me get to what I want to talk about tonight. I was just sitting here and I was praying and I was just thinking about things, and I'm still so thankful for what God provided for me earlier today that I didn't have to walk my bike all the way home, like 2.5 miles. And that doesn't maybe seem that much to you, but when you have torn meniscus in both knees, and when most of the trek is uphill, very steep, it's a long jaunt. Let me tell you, it's a long jaunt. And I'd only gone about half a block and my knees were already hurting. I'm like, Lord, I know I need to make it home, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to. Plus, I had a bunch of groceries because it might have been the only chance I got to get some groceries, so I had to get some more later, but I got some ramen and some more chicken fried steaks, and put them in the backpack, and I was gonna head home, and I made it about half a block, and guy across the street was like, "You got a flat tire?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Faux show, faux shizzle, show do. He goes, "Well, you can put your bike in the back of my pickup. I'll give you a ride home." It's like, oh, thank you. Thank you. This guy's name was Joe. And he's lived here for a long time. I don't know if he's lived here as long as me, but he's been here for I think he said he's lived in that house 30, 40 years. So I've been here a while. And just a very, very nice older gentleman. And of course, that for me saying older gentleman, where I'm almost 66, but he was older than me. But so nice of him to give me a ride home and help me. And I can't tell you how much that meant to me. And it's like, before I left the parking lot, I prayed. I said, Lord, I know I've got to try to make it home. And I had to get groceries, because it might be the only chance that I had. So I went into the store and got me a few things and put up my backpack and was going to walk my bike home. And keep in mind, this bike is an e-bike and it weighs about 70 pounds, 75 pounds. So it's not a light bike by any means. And I was going to have to walk it up all these hills. And so I was not looking forward to that. And my knees were already hurting. So I just so appreciate Joe giving me a ride home. Meant so much to me. I can't even tell you. It was an obvious answer to prayer. Anybody that says, it was coincidence, it wasn't an answer to prayer. Well, whatever. If they want to think that, go ahead. I know good and well that it was God looking out for me. Yeah, he let my tire go flat on my bike, but he provided me a way home. And right now I don't have any transportation, but I know that somehow something is going to come through. I was able to make it back and forth on foot to get the few extra things that I needed down to the convenience store, which is about a half mile away. But anyway, let me get past all this. And I just wanted to share that with you because it meant so much to me. And I just, when God does something for you like that, it's always special. I'm not saying that you don't expect it. You always expect God to do the miraculous. But that was just, I'd walked out of the grocery store parking lot and hadn't even made it half a block, and the guy yelled across the street at me, "Hey, you got a flat tire?" Yes. Yes, I do. So anyhow, I was just sitting here, and I don't know whether this is something that God wanted me to do, but it all of a sudden it just came onto my heart. I don't know if that made any sense, but you know what I'm saying. I just really felt compelled to tell you the story, to give you my testimony. And there's a reason that God put this on my heart tonight, and I really believe that there's somebody out there that I can help with this story. I don't know what aspect of it. I don't know how it can help you. But if it can help you, then, what the heck? I'll go ahead and it didn't cost me anything to tell it to you. So I'm going to give you my testimony. Now, when I was younger, we had a movie theater downtown. And I don't remember the name of the Charm Theater. That's what it was. I couldn't remember, and all of a sudden it just popped into my head. The Charm Theater. And we used to go, they always had Saturday matinees. And I remember going there, and that was, I don't know if you remember, those of you who are around my age remember the movie The Mummy. Not the one with Brendan Fraser, the newer version, but the old version, that came out. Now, this would have been around, I don't know, if I was like maybe 7 or 8 years old, that would have been, 65, 66, somewhere around there. Man, I'm old. But anyway, we used to go to I remember we went down there and saw That Darn Cat. I remember going to that Disney movie, That Darn Cat. And I remember we had gone to a movie like a couple of weeks before and saw the previews. And we're like, we got to see that. And I remember the part they had on the previews where the guy got on a trampoline and ended up in the swimming pool. We thought that was so cool. So we couldn't wait. We couldn't wait. I remember we saw That Darn Cat. We saw The Ugly Dachshund. I'm trying to remember what other movies that we went to as a kid there. Mary Poppins. I think I saw Mary Poppins there as well. I remember The Jungle Book was over in the next town, over in Oregon, in Ontario, Oregon. I remember my dad took me to it, and we got up to the thing, and they had just sold out. The person ahead of us got the last ticket. I remember I was so disappointed. So Dad said, well, we'll come again tomorrow night, and we'll get here early. And so we were able to get there early because I wanted to see The Jungle Book. That was like my all-time favorite movie as a kid. I loved The Jungle Book. Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your strife. I mean the bare necessities. That's why a bear can rest at ease with just the bare necessities of life. I still got that whole thing memorized. I remember we were driving along one day. Mom was driving. I was in the passenger seat. My sisters were in the back. And I don't remember, somehow the Jungle Book came up and I started singing that song. And my sister's was like, you still remember the whole thing word for word. And I loved that movie. Anyway, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. But, I have a tendency to ramble. You can always fast forward. But, yeah, I remember that, I want to be like you. I want to walk like you, talk like you, man, too. Oh, they love me. King Louis. This is what happens when I do get on the microphone real late in the evening. I start getting goofy because I start getting tired and I start kind of rambling. And, but hopefully that's entertaining to you. It's like, hopefully I don't fall asleep and start snoring on you like I did that one night on camera where everybody was worried about me because I kept almost falling asleep. They're like, something's wrong. It's like, no, I was just tired, man. I was tired and I couldn't keep my freaking eyes open. I hit a wall. I'm one of those people that I hit a wall. So if I hit a wall while I'm doing this and you hear me snoring, you know what's going on. But I'm one of those people that I hit a wall and it's like, I got to sleep now. And I don't have any choice. I just, boom. It's like, boom, and I'm asleep. Now if I go to bed and try to go to sleep, I'm not one of those people that can fall asleep. I'll lay there and toss and turn, blah, blah, blah. But when I get so tired that I hit that wall, it's like, I'm gone. But anyway, I remember what my point was about the theater. What they did is they turned the Charm Theater, excuse me, they closed the Charm Theater and they turned it into a church. And it's Bible Baptist Church. It's still there. And we were not a happy camper. We were not happy at all that they closed our only movie theater and turned it into a church. So we had this, big auditorium. We had this big auditorium. Well, anyway, I didn't like the church at all. I was not happy with it at all. So, but I started going to church there. I don't remember how old I was. And I can remember, I don't know if I was 6, 7, 8. I couldn't tell you how old I was for sure. But I remember sitting with a guy named Jeep. That's what they called him, Jeep. And he was blonde hair, had a crew cut. I can still see him like it was yesterday. And we're sitting there and he's talking to me about the Lord. And I remember him asking me if I wanted to be saved. And like I said, I don't know. I couldn't tell you how old I was. I wasn't super old, I was probably in grade school, 7, 8 years old. And I can remember sitting there with Jeep and he led me through a prayer. Now, I don't know for sure, to be honest with you, whether I was saved at that point or if it just hadn't sunk in. I think sometimes that you can be saved, but the knowledge or the full understanding of what it means doesn't really hit you. Because it didn't really hit me until later, as we'll get into. So anyway, I went to church there for years. I was heavily involved in the youth group. I remember there was a very good friend of mine named Doyle Harmon. We became very good friends. There were some other girls there. Last name of Johnson, one of the girls, Teola, I graduated with. And she had 2 younger sisters, and they went there. I think, if I remember right, Teola and the guy who was the pastor when I stopped attending there, his son got married, I believe. I know that she got married and later divorced. And as I look back, both her mom and my mom were really wanting her and I to get together. And, it didn't happen. You can't cry over spilled milk, but it really makes you wonder what would have happened if she and I would have gotten together. Because she was I haven't seen her for years and years, but she's a wonderful person, I felt. Very godly. And probably I should have pursued that, but it's too late to turn back now. All right. So, anyway, so I was involved in youth group. I really don't know if I just didn't understand or if I wasn't truly saved at that point. I really couldn't tell you. I know we used to talk about it. We used to talk about getting saved. We used to sing songs about being saved. But I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know. I didn't have a full understanding of what that meant, I don't think, at that age. Well, anyway, so I got out of high school. I got into police work. And I ended up over in eastern Idaho, which is pretty much 95% Mormon. And I've told this story before that I started dating a Mormon girl. And we weren't officially engaged, but we were talking about marriage. At this particular time, I was 23, I believe. I think I was 23 years old. And I got saved in 1981, so I was born in 57, so it's 22, 23. So anyway, she was talking about that she goes, well, if we get married, I want to get married in the temple. And you're not Mormon. And my dream is always to be married in the temple. So basically, to please her, I decided to get baptized into the Mormon Church. But I'm one of those people, once you get me into something, I go all out. And so once I got baptized into the Mormon Church, I was trying to learn everything I could. I went to they had a big Mormon bookstore, and I went and bought all these books. I mean, hundreds of dollars worth of books. And so I'm reading through these books, trying to learn as much as I can, right? I remember one day I was over at her apartment, and I was reading through some stuff, and I said, did you know the church believed this? It's like, no. I said, did you know that the church believed this? No. Now, look, here's the thing. Whether I was saved or not when I was younger, I had enough of a basis in the Bible to know what was biblical and what was not. And so as I'm reading through this stuff, I'm like, this is nuts. And I told her, I said, did you know that the church actually, and this is not from anti-Mormon books, this is from books from their own bookstore. Those are the things that started making me wonder. Is I'm reading through them, and I'm asking her, did you realize that the church believes this? Did you realize that the church believes that Lucifer and Jesus were both sons of God, and that Lucifer rebelled because God chose Jesus to come to earth instead of him? No, I'm sorry. Jesus is the creator of all things, and Satan, or Lucifer, is a created being, created by Jesus. As John chapter 1 says, all things were made by him, and without him, nothing was ever made that was made. That's not word for word, but it's pretty close. And so, no, they are not on equal footing. Satan or Lucifer or whatever you want to call him is a created being, just like all the other angels, created by Jesus. All right, so they are not on equal footing. So don't ever forget that. So there's all these things that I'm reading straight from their writings. And I'm just like, man, this is like weird. This is this doesn't make any sense. Well, apparently, now I had met her parents and they weren't ever overly friendly to me. Because I think they thought, well, I didn't grow up in the church, so I'm an outsider. And, with good reason, because I was. And I didn't take to their theology. Well, anyway, she saw me questioning, and that's one thing in a cult that you never do. You never question. Oh, my word. No, you don't. You always take things at face value. You never question. Don't dare question. And I was questioning. Because I'm able to think. I wasn't raised to be a brainless robot. Like someone who's been raised in that junk from birth. I knew how to think for myself. Well, anyway, long story short, her parents tried to break us up. Her sister tried to break us up. And I've told the story before about how I had quit my job at the police department and was supposed to be going to work out at the Atomic Center in Arco, Idaho. And all of a sudden, the guy who was supposed to hire me, he told me I basically had the job, just had to pass the fingerprint check, which I'd had fingerprints taken multiple times. Because anytime you go to work for a law enforcement agency, they take your fingerprints and they put them on file in NCIC, National Crime Information Center. So my fingerprints are already in there. There is no problem with my fingerprints. I knew when he told me that, I was like, because I knew there's no possible way. I had no criminal record. I'd never even had a ticket at that time. I mean, I had a squeaky clean record. There's no possible way that that there would be a problem with my fingerprints. So when he told me that, I already smelled BS. And I'm like, okay, because I already had a sneaking suspicion of what was going on. Well, it turned out that her sister lived right next to the guy who was supposed to be hiring me. And so her family and her sister, well, I guess she's part of the family, so yeah. Anyway, her parents, put it that way, her parents and her family wanted to break us up because they didn't trust me, and with good reason. I can't blame them for that because they saw the writing on the wall that I wasn't going to accept this malarkey, that I was going to question a lot of things, and I wasn't just going to be a brainless wonder and try to accept everything status quo. So, well, anyway, the guy ended up not hiring me, and then, well, first he told me, there's a problem with your fingerprints, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, every time I tried to call this joker, he was never available. He just avoided me. Chicken. But that's what Mormons do. That's what they do. I found this out later. My mom was watching some documentary, and I remember her calling me one day and said, what they did to you there, that's exactly what they do. They ostracize you. They shut you out. And that's what they did. So, anyway, here I had quit my job at the police department because they told me, I was basically in at this new position at the atomic plant or whatever it was in Arco, Idaho. So I had quit my job and was supposed to be going to work there in a couple of weeks. Well, all of a sudden now there's a snag because this guy is not getting back to me. I'm like, what do I do? So, oh, you know what? Guess what? The Mormons have their own employment agency. Yeah, you go to Job Service or wherever it is, a state run by the state in Idaho, they ain't got nothing, right? They got no jobs. If you want a job, and this was in Idaho Falls, Idaho, if you want a job, you got to go through the Mormon Employment Agency, which is what I did. Oh, lo and behold, the only job that they had, and I had to get something because I had no money coming in at all. I had to get something quick. The only job that they had was at this place in Dillon, Montana, which I don't remember how far Dillon, Montana is from Idaho Falls, but it was like 3 or 4 or 5 hours. I don't even remember now, but it was a ways away. So anyway, and I found out something else, that if you wanted to rent an apartment, they wouldn't rent it to you unless you were a Mormon. I looked in the newspaper because back then that's what you did. You didn't have internet and all that. So I looked in the newspaper, found these different places to call for apartments. And I found this one place, and there was this old guy. And I'm talking to him, and he goes, well, I assume that you're LDS, Latter-day Saints, it's Mormon. And I said, yes, I am, which at that particular time I still was. So he's like, well, okay. And so he offered to rent it for me, and it was at this house, and it was in this basement. Down in this basement, it was just like, it was a god-awful apartment. But it was a place to live. Well, anyway, but it was like one room. I mean, part of it was a kitchen, part of it was a living room, but it was basically one small room and a bedroom. And it was not soundproof, and the couple above were always making bacon, if you know what I mean. And finally, one night I was like, is that all you guys do? Anyway, so, because it was like, man, you guys make too much noise. I'm trying to sleep. So, anyway, I don't remember if this was before or after. Oh, it was before. Mom and Dad visited. They were going to come up and visit, right? And them and my sisters were going to come up and visit me. So, and I was just like really down because my girlfriend, almost fiance, whatever you want to call her, we're breaking up. I was depressed. And my mom became really concerned about me, which is interesting because Mom never had anything good to say about preachers. You know, she's dead now, and I don't believe she's in heaven. Let's just put it that way. I've never seen any evidence. I mean, she used to tell me, I just do not see how salvation can be so simple. You know, she just never could accept that it was free grace. So I do not think that she's in heaven, which, you know, is not a good thing to think about. But it's her choice. You know, I gave her the gospel many, many, many times. So anyway, here I'm at this apartment, and I'm down, I'm depressed. And it's, if you saw this apartment, how could you not be depressed? I mean, it was like had one little window in the kitchen. It was dark. It was just like, ugly. And down in the basement of his house. And so I remember I'm sitting there one day, and it was just a day that I was really down. And all of a sudden it's like somebody knocking at the door. But what the heck? Somebody's knocking at the door? The first visitor I ever had. So I'm like, so I open up the door, and here's this little scrawny old man, you know, and I'm looking at him. He's looking at me. He says, Kevin? I go, yeah. He goes, hi, I'm Jim Kirtley. your mom wanted me to come see you. I'm like, okay, who is this guy? And he goes, I'm with, I think it was First Southern Baptist Church. It was a Southern Baptist Church. I don't remember. I think it was First Southern Baptist Church. Or no, Beaver Baptist Church, I think is what it was. Because Dillon's in Beaver County, Montana. I think it was Beaverhead Baptist Church, something like that. So I'm thinking, this guy's a scrawny little dude. He's not a threat. So we'll just let him in. And at that particular point, it was nice just to have somebody to talk to. So, and here's the thought while I'm thinking of it. Let me give this to you. Sometimes God will use methods that you normally would never guess to bless you. So here it is, my mom, she never had anything good to say about preachers. She always thought it was stupid that I even considered being one. She thought it was idiocy. But here she, and here's how she got a hold of him. I left this part out. Now, this was in 1981, so this probably wouldn't happen today. She called the operator. She asked for the operator up in that area. And anyway, she got in a big discussion with this gal who was the operator. And you don't see them anymore. Operator, let me place this call. Operator. She was called the operator for Dillon, Montana. Anyway, she starts talking, and she asked her, and this gal was so gracious, was so nice, and Mom called her up, and she said, my son is depressed, blah, blah, blah. I want to get a hold of a pastor and have him go talk to him. So she started going down a list, and Mom's like, nah. But she mentions this pastor at Southern Baptist Church. And she goes, well, he used to go to a Baptist church. It wasn't Southern Baptist, but it was a Baptist church. So anyway, the operator gave her the number for the church. And Mom called him, explained to him what was going on. And he stopped by. So anyway, he comes in, and we just started having a really, really good conversation. I was talking about what was going on. And I was telling him about breaking up with my girlfriend and that I've been down and blah, blah, blah. And just having a casual conversation. The guy he and his wife both, Edith was his wife's name. I highly doubt they're around. If they are, they're in their late 90s. But they were the most wonderful, gracious. They were like I used to call them my second set of parents, because that's exactly what they were like. I was 23 years old. They were in their 50s or 60s. I have no idea, because it's hard to judge age when you're young like that. But anyway, so he comes in and we start talking. Well, anyway, he starts going into asking me about salvation. And I have no idea what it was that we even talked about. The only thing that I truly remember, he started telling me about Christ dying on the cross, the biblical things that he started mentioning, all of those things that I had been taught when I was younger. Let me tell you something. If you teach kids, don't ever think that you're not getting through, even if they're acting like they're not hearing a word you're saying. And I can tell you this from my own experience working with kids. I've run into kids that I worked with and they were younger years later, and they've told me what an impact I made on their life. And I'm floored. I'm absolutely floored. I remember there's one kid named Dale, and he was telling me he's actually pastoring a church. And I'm like, man, you'd be the last kid I thought would be a pastor. I didn't think you heard a word I said. And he starts telling me the impact that I made on his life just because he could tell that I cared, that he got love from me that he didn't get from his family. I mean, it made such an impression on him. But he was a little turd. I mean, he was he was a rascal. Let me tell you what, he was a handful. But years later, he starts telling me all the things that the thing that I meant in his life. And it just astounds you. This just shows you that it's not you, it's God. All God asks you to do is be faithful. You do the work. You do what God tells you to do and leave the results up to Him. Like Paul said, Paul planted, Barnabas watered, God gave the increase. So, and it's found out to be so true. So anyway, here I am. He's talking to me. And he's talking about these different things, and it's all stuff that I remembered as a child being told. And you got to understand, if you're being exposed to all this Mormonism and stuff, and all these weird doctrines and all these lies, all of a sudden here's somebody sitting here talking to me, telling me things that I knew were true, because I already knew these things. But I'm not so sure. Either one of two things. Either I was saved at that point, or I was saved when I was younger, but God finally drove it home. And I kind of think I was saved when I was younger because I was always different than a lot of the other kids. I was always very conservative. I didn't go out, drinking. I did one time and got in trouble, when I was a junior. But for the most part, I was a pretty good kid, and I had different moral standards than most of the other kids. There were certain things I could not do. I had a more tender conscience, I guess you'd say. So it could have been that I was saved, had the Holy Spirit, but God used this pastor there in Montana to finally drive it home and make me understand. But anyway, I got down on my knees and I prayed. He led me in a prayer. And from that point on, I was on fire. He gave me this book. I can't remember the name of it. Something like Beginning Christian Survival Guide or something like that. I don't remember. It was something that the Southern Baptist Convention put out. But it was a really, really good book. And I went through basically the basics of Christianity. And it was like fill in the blanks. And you had to go and you had to look up the answers in your Bible. And I remember he told me that I should get a Thompson Chain Bible. I did. I went to they actually had a Bible bookstore. I think it was one there in Dillon. And I went there and bought me a Thompson Chain Reference Bible, which I have since lost, but I went and bought another one, and I've got a new one now, which I learned so much from just studying the references in that Bible. And anyway, I started buying other Bibles, and I started building up my library. And well, anyway, I can't remember. It was like a couple of weeks after I was saved. I told him, I said, can we wait for me to be baptized? Mom and Dad are visiting, and I would really like them to be here when I get baptized. No problem. Well, we didn't have a baptistry at the small church, and it was like a little log cabin church. It was so cool. And the people there were so awesome. I loved that church. And I loved Jim and Edith. They were fantastic people. And I owe them an everlasting debt. The way that they nurtured me, and like I said, I called them my second set of parents because they used to have me over for dinner all the time. Every day after every Sunday after church, they'd always have me over. And they actually had a son who I can't remember his name, but he was right around my age. And for some reason, he had gotten disoriented with church and quit going. Well, as a result of me being there and becoming friends with him, he started going to church again. So that was pretty cool. It's like, here it was. He not only provided me with my start as far as a Christian life, as a result of me becoming friends with their son, he ended up coming back to church. It was just, God works things sometimes in the most, sometimes strange ways to us. But he's got a plan. He's got a plan. And I know, like with my life, I really feel like something great is going to happen. I've been kind of discouraged. I've been kind of down a little bit. But for some reason, it's like God has lit another fire under me. And I'm extremely optimistic. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what God's got in store, but I told him, whatever it is, I'm willing to do whatever I can to serve. And that's all I want to do. That's all I want to do is serve. I want to reach people. I want to be helpful. I want to be an instrument in God's hand. That's what I want. So anyway, I just really felt compelled to tell you that story tonight, my testimony. To me, it's like the most improbable thing. My mom, of all people, calling a preacher who she had no use for the most part. Called the preacher to come talk to me. And the preacher and his wife and his son became my home away from home, became my second family, my second set of parents. And I'm forever grateful to them. If somehow they're like still alive and they hear this, Jim and Edith Kirtley, love you guys. Even if you've already passed on, still love you and what you did for me and the impact that you had on my life. So anyway, I've probably gone on a lot longer than I should have. You've probably stopped listening by now. But I've enjoyed telling it because it brings back those memories, those feelings that are things that I'm always going to cherish and things that I'm always going to appreciate. There's just certain people that make such an impact in your life, you can't help but always appreciate and remember. And sometimes they're not always on your mind, but certain things trigger those memories. And I tell you what, I just really hope that I'm still able to make an impact in other people's lives like they did on mine. I really do. I mean, I want that with all my heart. Some of you maybe have made an impact and have helped and maybe have answered some questions that you had. And if so, hallelujah. That's my purpose. That's what I want to happen. I'm not always kind and loving like I should be. Sometimes I'm very competitive. People twerk my chain and I haven't always learned to turn the other cheek. And so I've always been the super competitive type, and so that's really, really hard for me to do. But in the end, I just want to be a blessing. There's a song There's a hymn we used to sing that says, "Make me a blessing." And I don't remember how it goes, or they even sing it for you. Make me a blessing. And that's what I want. I just want to be a blessing to everybody. I want to be a blessing. So, bless you, my child. God bless you, my child. You know what I'm saying? All right. So, I better get off here before I get myself in trouble. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean there? Anyway, so I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed my testimony. You know, if nothing else, it's been cathartic for me to just tell it again and bring back those memories that I so cherish. All right, folks, have a good Friday evening. We shall talk to you later.